Hey, this is Paul, and today we're going to talk about all of the new dragon fruit hybrids and seedlings that are coming into the market. And let's step back a little bit and think about the history. So we love all these new Dom Burnett seedlings. You could tell, beautiful flowers. Connie G has a delicious fruit. But if you think about it, the most common parent plant a lot of hybridizers are using is right here, and this is Connie Meyer. So due to the beautiful flower, the purple flower, a lot of people use this as a parent plant. Now the thing that I don't like about it is you can see, or it's more challenging for my zone you should see, is that it gets hot. It's not very hot and cold tolerant. In other words, it's gonna melt like this in the winter and the summer. I've lost a lot of branches. This plant's very old, and just every year the same thing happens, both in extreme and warm and cold environments. And the reason why is that this plant was actually created in Germany. It was a cross between Hylocereus stenopterus and a German undatus. So I have an undatus over here, and what I've learned over the years is that actually the species of undatus that they used is probably something similar to this, where it will break down in the heat waves. In other words, this fruit will really get gelatinous inside. In fact, here's a picture of it. You can see what it looks like. And that's a really bad trait, and it actually carries over into some of the hybrids, even into some of Paul Thompson's, like Purple Haze, I've noticed. So that is a bad trait, and it actually crossed it into Connie Meyer, Kathy Von Aram, and Bruni will all break down a little bit in the heat wave, the fruit itself and the plant. So these traits are not optimal, but luckily Dom Burnett crossed a Guatemalensis, a Guatemalan G1, which are my favorite fruit. So let's go up there and see what happened when Connie Meyer was crossed with a G1. So we just left Connie Meyer. Here's the other plant that Dom Burnett crossed, and this is G1, a Guatemalan from most likely Kwangong. Beautiful fruit, one of my favorite, and G1's a bit more sensitive than say G2 or G3. But either way, he crossed those and he grew 18 seedlings. We have quite a few of them, and let's go check them out and talk about them a bit. So first up, this is Cotton Candy 1-10. You can see a little sun stress, a little breakdown like its mother, Connie Meyer, but definitely not as bad. And also this is stressed because I'm not protecting it from the sun. I'm not using any shade cloth. Also, it's on its third wave of fruit. So it's been banging out some delicious fruit. Now up here, here's Dom Burnett's 1-12, really stunning purple flower. I haven't had the fruit yet. It's almost ripe, as you can see. But again, that yellowing and a little bit of damage, probably from Connie Meyer. But overall, this plant's quite healthy, you can see, but again, just a little bit of sun damage. We've had a heat wave. We're gonna get over 100 degrees again this week, so I will put some burlap on this. Now here's probably the best tasting one, in my opinion, that I've had so far, and this is Connie G. And Connie G has just put on wave after wave. This is its third or fourth wave of fruit, and you can see it has half a dozen here. Bunch of beautiful ones. We crossed it with Pink Panther. I'm going to actually grow some of the seeds here. But again, a little bit of damage. So you can see that some of the genetics have carried over, a little bit of sun sensitivity, cold sensitivity, but delicious fruit. Those are magenta inside, a really great fruit. Here's Honesty 1-3, one that we got and we named. I give it away for free. And the first fruit that we're going to try is this one here. I can't wait to try it. So a lot of the beautiful traits. Oh, here's a Queen Daenerys, which is probably the most stunning flower. Hopefully here, you got to see this flower. It's absolutely beautiful. And this is Queen Daenerys. And again, some of those traits. So I've learned over the years that when you're crossing things, they're still going to be maybe a little bit better, but they're still going to have some sensitivities from their parent plants. So let's head up on the hill and talk about some of the hybrids that I've been growing out. I've been really focused on the fruit production rather than the flower, and I'll tell you some of the goods and bads in my experience so far. So back in 2019, Scott and I actually went to our first Pitahaya festival, and this plant was released by Edgar Valdivia and Paco, and this is the official Asunta 5, as you can see. It's probably the most beautiful flower in our collection, but they use Tricia. And that was one of the parent plants, I believe the pollen source. And so as soon as I could, I took Tricia and I actually wanted to hybridize it myself. And we mixed Tricia and Paul's Laverne Pink. In fact, we did it both ways. So I used Tricia as a pollen source and a parent plant, and Paul's Laverne Pink vice versa. So this one was Paul's Laverne Pink crossed with Tricia pollen, and look at monstrosity, that's what we call it. So you can see that Tricia is an extremely dominant trait. In other words, I just used the pollen source on a Guatemalan Undatus hybrid, and look at how much this looks like Tricia, the long spines. I mean, the fruit even kind of, well, I don't know, Scott, what do you think about this fruit? It's sort of a very
You haven't
unique
tasted
shape.
it yet, right?
Yeah, we haven't tasted it yet.
This is the first.
The shape alone is really unique.
Yeah, it's more oblong.
So we grew this out. It's been really an aggressive grower, doing quite well. It gets a little yellowing, just like the Asunta Phi Paco and Ventura. But man, really interesting how that crossed. Now we did the opposite, where I used Tricia as the mother plant and Paul's Laverne Pink as a pollen source, and that plant is actually down here a little bit. So let's go see what it looks like. I mean, we have so many hybrids here, but just these crosses I found really interesting. Let's see, where is it? Here it is. And this one actually was a little bit more sun-stressed. So even switching the genetics, you can see this one even looks more like Tricia. It's probably going to taste like Tricia too.
This hasn't budded yet? Or?
No, okay. But I've had these a few years, but again, they both look Tricia, very Tricia dominant, whether I used it as the mother or as the father. So I found that it was to be really interesting. I can't wait for this one to flower and fruit. It's been a lot slower. So using the Tricia as the mother, the growth rate of this seedling has been less.
Do you think the fruit will be
I think it's going to be a lot like Tricia. I'm actually kind of nervous to try it because Tricia's not my favorite. And that's honestly why I'm afraid to buy some of these Asunta 7s, because they used Tricia pollen at Asunta 5, and then they used a Valdivia Roja on Asunta 7.
Why do you think they're using Tricia pollen? Just because of the flower trait?
I'm not sure. I really think Edgar Valdivia has always really been focused on a beautiful flower.
Right.
I mean, hence the start of Asunta. But man, once it got to Asunta 5, I see why he crossed it with Tricia for the flower, but I'm a little nervous to try the fruit. So my mindset has always been really delicious fruit. So that's why really early on, a gentleman that knew way more than me, a hybridizer named Richard Reed, he gave us a G3 crossed with physical graffiti pollen. And he just gave us a little seedling. I grew it out and look at it now. And honestly, I hate to say it, this is probably my favorite fruit of the season. And I know it's our own hybrid, and we sell these just as much as any other plant, so to me it's not a super expensive plant. But man, the flavors of this, I'll never forget. It tasted like Dark Star, straight to American Beauty with a little bit of Caslau, and you know what that tastes like, Scott, where it's like that mashed berries.
Yeah, it's really good.
I did run a self-fertility check. Let's see, I have it somewhere here, and it failed. So this plant, oh, there it is. So see, it aborted. So I bagged it and did a proper self-fertility check, and it aborted, which shows that actually that's a good thing in this case, in my opinion, because I know that it was crossed with PG. Part of me was worried, well, how do you know with a self-fertile like G3, how do you really cross-pollinate that? What if it pollinated itself? So those are just some things I've been thinking about, but either way, this fruit is delicious, which is the goal. We really want high-quality fruit. Now, Linda Nickerson early on recommended that we grow this plant out. So the first time I met her, we bought some fruit, and she said, Paul, you need to grow these seeds out. And this is her physical graffiti. And she said that she used mixed pollen, and she said, grow these seeds out. Back in 2019, Scott, this is one of the first fruit we reviewed, and look at it now. Now it's got in multiple waves. So again, I really like those physical graffiti flavors, right? They're self-sterile, but man, the traits of that plant is vigorous, it's an aggressive grower. All these things are personally things that I want for our own hybrids. And you can see this thing, it got a little sun damage. Well, look at that. So probably the Undatus trait, or just, I didn't cover these at all, and we've had a really long, hot summer. In fact, you can see probably the plants are more yellow than they've ever been. And I hope that we'll get some nice cool weather. I'm gonna fertilize them today. But man, some seasons in Southern California, it's just really incessant long heat, high UV, and that's another thing I really want to improve on breeding, is that we want to have plants that can tolerate this full sun. So let's go show you some other hybrids that we have in our collection that people were able to cross to make beautiful fruit, self-pollinating, and can take full sun. Let's go show you some of Gray Martin's. So hopefully you know who Gray Martin is. He, to me, in my opinion, is one of the most important people in dragon fruit farming, and he is a commercial grower, and he's a hybridizer as well. And this is his 1355. You can see it does great in our full sun. In fact, this is under a year old. I got some cuttings less than a year ago, and it's already topped the trellis. Now, he's created self-fertile, self-pollinating varieties, and some of his commercial ones include, I believe, praise and glow, just to name a few. So this one's unreleased. I'm never gonna share it. The fruit's delicious. It's a magenta flesh, but again, really happy full sun plant. You could tell that the genetics he used probably were a Guatemalan and an Undatus. Now he also gave us opal. He was very kind. Here's opal over here. And again, you can see, look, it gets full sun in our climate, probably one of the hottest spots in the yard. And he gave it to us a year ago. He said, treat it right, it will flower for you. And my gosh, look at this thing. Very aggressive, happy grower, multiple waves. I know very little about this plant, actually. I would assume it's self-fertile, probably self-pollinating. And if I had to guess, I think it's more of a lighter colored flesh, but this is opal. So you can see that he's crossed and hybridized and practiced growing thousands of seedlings for years, and he got some traits that he wants. Again, self-fertile, full sun, the Undatus, I believe, the genetics in here, the fruit doesn't break down like we talked about earlier. So wow, these are some winners. And I guarantee you he spent a lot of time growing different seeds. So let's move on. Let's talk about some more hybrids that we're releasing and kind of the ideas about why and how to distribute them so they can be evaluated in different climates. So let's go up the hill and talk some more. So here's one of our Orejona seedlings. This is seedling number 7. And as you can see, I actually grafted this as a seedling tip graft years ago. And look at how thick and gnarly it is now. And so as I grew it, it grew really rapidly. It produced a lot of delicious fruit like Linda's Red, although this one's a little bit greener. Everything about the flower and the fruit is a greener in color. And I thought it was really important to degraft this and grow it out as well because of this plant. Now this plant is Thanos, which is a rare hybrid from Puerto Rico. And I grew this thing for years, and every season it just got damaged from the roots. It just was totally weak. And very long story short, I found out that this hybrid was grafted, and it only does well grafted. So in other words, the seedling has a really weak root system. So in 2 years, 2 winters, it's rotted out, and I've started again. So I have to graft this to be able to grow it. So it got me thinking. So with this Orejona seedling grafted, I decided I would grow it degrafted in a totally different environment down the hill. Now before we go down there and talk about that one, check this out. Here's another sister seedling I have, and this is seedling number 6. It's never flowered, and you can see I'm just letting it do its thing this season. And here's our first one that flowered. This is Linda's Red. Actually, it's one of the best reds we've had. It's really, really delicious, I have to say. Same with Orejona seedling number 8. But these seedling sisters have been just really great, delicious, productive plants. And again, I've been growing them ungrafted here. So that one that I grew grafted, I decided to degraft it, and I put it in a totally different environment. Meaning, that one up there was getting protected from the bamboo. It was about 65 to 70% sunlight. So I took some cuttings of it just probably 2 seasons ago and decided to put it with El Grullo down here in our full hot sun. And you can see that I'm happy and pleased to share that it's doing great. In fact, I get to try grafted fruit versus ungrafted fruit to see if there's a difference. So this plant, you can see I threw it in the extremes, full sun, 100% sun. Got a little yellowing on this one branch, but look at how productive it is. It's got multiple waves, multiple flowers. So it was just really important for me to see how does that plant do ungrafted. And you can see here in this case, it's doing just fine. So it takes years and years to properly evaluate a dragon fruit. You're gonna need a big crew of people to help evaluate it with you, try it in different climates, and be ready to have your feelings hurt because some people may not like the fruit that you're growing, or they may think the flower's not pretty. So you can't please everybody. The goal is, for me at least, is to produce really high quality fruit that can tolerate full Southern California sun. So hopefully you've been following us. We've been ruining and taking out a lot of plants this season. I hate to say, I think Connie's gonna go. I love her, but man, this is just not what I want. So right back where we started, the genetics of this plant, created by a German hybridizer, Connie Meyer, are just not exactly what I want in Southern California. So lessons learned, a lot of lessons learned, and I look forward to keep breeding these mysterious plants and making mistakes and having fun. So there you go, give us a like, subscribe. Thanks for watching.